to the people, hearts burning bold. False promises and corrupt schemes rip the veil off the deadly dreams. No more silence, no more deceit. We'll take back the ground beneath our feet. Soldiers of a broken world, with tattered banners, let your rage unfurl. Stand against tyranny that's deep and old. Power to the people, hearts burning bold. False promises and corrupt schemes rip the veil off the deadly dreams. No more silence, no more deceit. We'll take back the ground beneath our feet.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get in some trouble today. Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to Burn the Corporate Fiction. You guys may have noticed the title of the stream, something I like to affectionately call the ginati. It's been a theory of mine recently that, so we all know, anyone who knows the law, and I would argue, not to pat myself on the back, there's not very many people who know the law as well as I do, and I'll debate anybody. I'm open to opposing viewpoints. We know that they want to replace God. Okay, that's just point blank, period. They want to replace God. The judge up there holding this phallic symbol, banging it on the puck, hates when you bring up God, probably because he's not wearing anything under the robe. Who knows why, right? But he wants to be God, and it's all about control. But it began to occur to me, why? Why do they hate God so much? Why do they want to replace him? And throughout my research, I continue to find this common thread. They're sodomites. I just put it out there, point blank, period. They're sodomites. So we're going to get into that today. Ordinarily, I bore you guys with law and a bunch of dense and wordy text material and try to get you guys to understand, how this stuff works. But today I'm going to put forth postulation, theory, based on evidence, based on my research. And you guys are welcome to agree or disagree, but the past 5 years have pretty much convinced me that this is the case. So let's say hi to a few people that have shown up already over in the chat. We got Mr. Super Sidewinder was the first one here. Good to see you. Dylan Heron, Mojo Shop. Good to see you guys. We have, let's see, John Keeley. Good to see you, brother. Palpable. Good to see you. And let's see, it's pretty much you guys talking right now. So, all right. First thing, I've got to get a little base, just discussion out there about the law, so we understand how I arrive at this conclusion, right? So, in England, Western law, right, for centuries upon centuries, the law was unwritten. It was transmitted orally, and it was considered basically an abomination to write the law down. And it was understood that man does not make law. We only recognize it. We apply it to society. It's based on natural law, divine revelation, right? Then you have William the Conqueror come in 1066, and he takes and uses that common law to create a feudal system. How does he do that? Well, it comes from the understanding that you can't affect other people's free will. But if you control their property, then you control their free will, because property is the ultimate realization of will. And I've spoken about that on on other streams. So basically, he had everyone register their property. All property ownership went to the king, and then the king was able to gift the property back out and control how it was used and under what servages, homages, and fees it was to be used, right? So he can make money, control the property, and thereby control everyone's lives. And there is Roman civil law. That's the feudal system. And it's primarily based on contract, trust arrangement, and the use of property. We live in a neo-feudal system today. Now, there's one interesting thing about the law, and this is how you can recognize the purity of common laws. You can go from 1215 all the way to the Northwest Ordinance in the United States. And the same common law that's encapsulated in the Magna Carta is the same exact common law that is encapsulated in the Northwest Ordinance. And it's unchanged. You know why? Because they can't write it. They can't change it. And one of the funny things about common law is it's illegal to be a sodomite. You can't be a sodomite, right? Because it violates the natural law of the attraction between the sexes. And I'll take you one even further. When you look at the fact that Congress, commerce, and intercourse all have the same meaning, okay? It's the interplay between positive and negative polarities. I'll give you an example. You and I make a deal, right? I give you something that's positive. That's the positive aspect of the polarity. And I receive something that's the negative aspect of the polarity, right? And vice versa. You give me something that's positive aspect, but it's negative to you. It's positive to me, right? So you give me something, it's negative to you, positive to me, and I give you something, it's negative to me, positive to you. And the ancients understood this. This is the ancient wisdom, right? Part of it. And that's why Congress, commerce, and intercourse all have the same meaning. Now, if you take that understanding and you apply it to our economic system today, where we do nothing but trade negatives, it's gay. We're in a gay economic system. It's totally gay. I know this might sound crazy or out there, but let's take a look at the past 5 years. No, let's take a look at the past 7 years, right? What have they been pushing in our faces? What is the DEI, what is that called? The ESG, economic social governance, where they're trying to govern everybody through the corporations by controlling the interest rates and loan conditions of corporations, whether or not they adhere to these gay policies. And then they're just jamming it in your face all the time. Disney's still just jamming it in your face all the time, both literally and figuratively, right? I was actually talking to my dad earlier, and I explained him to that. And I explained that to him. I said, it's just basically negative and negative. It's like it's a gay system, right? Gay economic system. He goes, yeah, and they're fucking you in the ass. So that's the other hand. Yeah, good point. It's a pretty good point. So, anyways, that is the very foundation. So, okay, so it's illegal to be gay at common law, right? So what they have done is they have, and I'm not saying this is the only reason, but this is a huge reason. And we're going to get into the Templars, the ancient clergy, the rumors surrounding them, and what they were interested in and all that. And I believe that's why they've usurped common law with Roman civil law, which is contract law, right? Because then you look at ancient Rome, right, where that was the system of law they were under, where the control of property was under the emperor, who was a god king, and what he said was legal. And then you had these huge festive orgies called Saturnalia, and it was filled with sexual debauchery, right? Absolutely just filled with sexual debauchery. And that's what your Christmas is today, where you gather around a big giant penis in the middle of your room and you give each other gifts, right? It's true, right? So anyways, they pulled everyone out of common law by taking control of your right to property, which I've explained many times on this stream, and I'm not going to bore you with it right now, but they took your right to property and then entered you into contracts as an infant. Okay, so now they control the entirety of your property, and they give you privileges that they call rights. They're not rights. Rights are right. Okay, they're unalienable, and they're endowed upon you by God. Privileges are not rights. And at common law, you can have no such thing as gay rights or trans rights or any of these things. These are privileges, and the only way they're permissible and legally enforce, they can legally enforce the acceptance of these things, is through their Roman civil law system. That's it. And that's one of the big reasons I believe that they want to become God. They probably hate God because they feel like God made them the way that they are. And, they of course can't help it and all that good stuff. Whatever the case may be, I don't know. Maybe that's true. But what I do know is that they keep pushing this shit in everybody's face. And I believe it's one of the big reasons they wanted to get rid of common law. And I actually have some receipts for this. So let me show you guys something. This is a book called The Interexes. Okay, this was written by a lawyer. His name's Xavier Maine. Well, hold on. We don't want to lose our page. Did we lose the page? Well, I gotta look this up. So it's called The Interexes, and it's a rare book. There we go. Okay, so remember page 15. So I'm going to show you guys the title of the book at the top. It's called The Interexes. It's written by this guy named Xavier Maine back in the 1800s. There's only 125 copies, of which this is number 87. Of course, University of Michigan. Okay. I inscribed this book with humility, remembering that without his suggestion and aid, it would have never been begun nor carried to its close. And that's Dr. Richard Von Kraft. So this guy has basically created this book where it's this legal argument for homosexuality. Okay. That's what this entire book is. If you're curious to read it, I can link it. But I mean, it's kind of, there's only one reason I brought it up. We're going to go down to page 15 here. So page 15, let me zoom in for everyone. This was the first time when I came across this book and I was searching these different treaties and stuff for what they were talking about common law. And this was a while back, probably like a year ago. And I came across this book. This is when it first occurred to me, right? He says, do not despise the ostrich because it has not the eagle's wings. Do not think that the terrible beauty of some tropical serpent is ruined since it has not even as many legs as the tiniest lizard. Basically, don't hate something because it is the way it is. Of course, that's argument. Love is love, man. Love is love, right? Thank you, Gordzilla. I appreciate it, man. He said, today's show title, oh, too funny. Yeah, I'm glad you appreciate it. So, the whole argument, love is love, all that good stuff, right? You go down here towards the bottom, he says, everywhere we encounter borrowings from one, loans from another, which has a whole new meaning now when you understand that that's how they created this homosexual economic system of the negative and negative debt for debt system. It totally defies the meaning of commerce or Congress or intercourse or any of that thing, right? He says, everywhere we encounter borrowings from one, loans from the other, strange but natural interrelations, revolts against conforming to details that seem almost obligations in kind and taste and conduct, crossings of what seem natural boundaries. Now, here's the important part. Whole kingdoms of life instituted and allowed an eternal rebellion from a common law. Now, remember, this is a book trying to create a legal argument to justify homosexuality. And he's applauding and praising the fact that all around you can witness kingdoms, he says, right, that violate natural boundaries and are an eternal and open rebellion to the common law. And it clicked for me. I'm like, that's why they want to get rid of common law. So you can't ever get rid of common law. All you can do is bury it under contract. That's all you can do. Right? You can remove someone's access to common law by not allowing them to have any real property rights. And that's the situation we find ourselves in today. You're an infant whose property rights have been mortgaged. Okay. And you're basically under the patronage or parentage of the United States corporation as an infant who cannot hold title. And you have civil rights, which are privileges that are given to you by this corporation and protected. It's a benefit. That's one of the benefits, right? They protect the privileges they give you. So you can be a deviant and they'll protect you, right? It may violate actual law, but you're not under law. And in fact, let them worry about that because you're just an infant. So you can have this right to be a deviant and to be a abhorrent sodomite. And we'll call it gay rights, right? And then when somebody says something about her, says, hey, I don't want those books in the school, or I don't want boys in my daughter's bathroom, whatever the case may be, right? That's a hate crime now. That's a hate crime. See, what they're trying to do is actually unlawful, right? But in their system of inversion that they've created through contract law, now it's suddenly lawful. Not only is it lawful, but if you say it's unlawful, then you're hateful, and that's a crime for hating what is despicable. So remember this, and I always tell people this as often as I can: complete tolerance of everything is tolerance of evil. That's a simple fact, you know. So I think my dad's going to be joining me shortly after he eats dinner here. Quartzillus, as I usually just call him. Well, it's not just Jews, though. That's the thing. We're going to get into that. I came across this interesting article. Let me pull it up. It's not Where the Night's Gay. Okay, so this is a Russian, the only way to research is non-Google based web browsers. And so I like to look at blogs and see what research other people have come across and verify it on my own. Now, I have not verified any of this, but I do know a lot of these things just because they're part of well-known history, right? So I guess you could call that verification. It says out of all that, before I even get into this, let's preface what the attorneys are in general. Okay, what are the attorneys? So the attorneys are esquires. What is an esquire? Esquire is a shield bearer, an attendant to a knight. Where do the attorneys come from? Well, they're part of the bar association. Where does the bar association come from? Well, those come from the Inns of Court in the old Templar church in the Crown District of London. Oh, so now we have an association here. We got these shield bearers that come out as esquires and the bar association that control the law and primarily contract law, right? And they're in the old Knights Templar building. That's where their head, the Inns of Court that create all of these demons comes out of the old Templar building in the Crown District of London. Okay, so boom, shield bearer, attendant to the knight. That's what the attorney is. Templar, actually, interestingly enough, before we even get into this, Templar means a student of the law, right? So it says from the temple, a house near Thames, which is where the Inns of Court, right, which originally belonged to the Knights Templars. The latter took their denomination from an apartment of the Palace of Baldwin II in Jerusalem near the temple. Now, the Templar church is in the Crown District of London. That's where the Inns of Court are. And so a Templar is a student of the law. What law, though, I imagine? Funny thing is after the Magna Carta of 1215, that's when the Inns of Court were created and dedicated solely to the study of the common law, but then, of course, got infected with Roman civil law, and now that's all they concern themselves with. See, I personally think that they got to study the common law to figure out how to subvert it, because remember, they can't write it, and they can't change it. You can't. It all goes back to property rights. Common law can be summed up as simply as this. As long as no one else owns a piece of property, you have a right to that property. And once you claim it, nobody else has a right to it unless you willfully consent to give it to them or let them have an interest in it, right? And it gets even deeper than that. You're not even supposed to let people have an interest in your property because that's usury, okay? Everybody thinks about usury in the sense of, loaning at interest, which is a form of usury. But nobody looks at the fact that you registering your car with the state and paying them to use it and paying them to drive it is also usury. That's usury. In the same way in the feudal system in England, and this is a neo-feudal system now, in the same way that in the feudal system in England, the king taking control of all the property and then gifting it back out to the people who formerly owned it under certain conditions, that's usury, right? You're giving somebody something under profitable conditions for yourself and letting them use it. You're not even giving it to them. You're just letting them use it, okay? So that's where all other law comes from. Every other form of law other than actual law, when you see the word law written in the Constitution, when you see the word law written in state constitutions or old law books from the 1800s, there is only one law all the way up till 1933. Okay. And everything else is either equity or some form of contract, which is all private law. We can take a look at the word equity. What does equity mean? Because we had Kamala Harris going around diversity, equity, inclusion. Equity is an interest in something, a financial interest in something. Okay, so when you have the superior financial interest in a piece of property, it's called superior equity. You have superior equity in this. When you want to pull money out of your house, you're pulling equity out of your house, right? And when you have a property that is under what's called privity, which means more than one person has an interest in it, then you only have equitable rights to that property. Okay, so if it's actually a feudal usufructuary situation, which means only the right to use it, then somebody owns it and you're using it. They have legal title, you have equitable title. Now, if a corporation or nobody technically owns it, but the ownership is shared, then everyone only has equitable rights to it. And that can only be litigated in a court of equity where the judge is God. And I mean it, they want to become God. And we might circle back to that because that's a very important aspect of this. But Templar, a student of the law, okay? And then we go here, Esquire, scutum, a shield, a hide of which shields were anciently made, a shield bearer or armor bearer, a scutifier, an attendant on a knight. Hence, in modern times, a title of dignity next in degree below a knight, right? So that's what all attorneys are, esquires, right? Anyways, Earthgoat Test says I've been writing my own law. I mean, regarding your own property, if you, man can't make law. It's legislation, exactly. Statutory or some form of contract that requires your consent to be under it. So let's get back to the point. So we've established Templars and Esquires are primarily behind this whole usurpation, well, in my opinion, and just given the root foundation, because it was the clergy that controlled the common law in England after William the Conqueror had taken over the courts and forced everybody to register their property. So this all goes back to them. And now we're going to go back over here to this. Well, no, this one. Says, out of all the crimes that French inquisitors charged Templars with, the latter were guilty of only one, homosexual practices. Only 12 out of 1,000 Templars were guilty of heresy. So they were at least, what's the word I'm looking for? Faithful and devout homosexuals. However, this charge is hypocritical, to put it mildly, as homosexual practices, first and foremost, sodomy, were common in every Christian monastic order and among the Catholic clergy as well. That's weird. We would never expect that they would be engaged in those type of practices, because nothing like that has happened today. It's been such a long time since you've heard about a gay priest or some kind of gay bishop or, in any kind of Christian church setting, right? Whether it be Catholic or otherwise, because I'm not just picking on the Catholics. You got that one bishop over in Sweden that wants to take down all crosses and put up Muslim symbolism so that they don't offend the Islamists. And now, see, that's what's another interesting aspect to all this, is that people don't realize that the Knights Templar were actually not originally a Christian order. They were created after the order of the Assassins, which is the assassins, like what the game Assassin's Creed is based out of, right? And the Assassins were could basically kill anybody, and it was a Muslim order that basically defected away from Islam and ended up doing whatever they wanted to, and the leader of the Assassins became, highly powerful and prominent until conquered by the Mongols. But the Knights Templar formed their order based on that order, right? So I'm not going to get too much into that, but it's just funny that you find, like, so we'll go to Skull and Bones Society. That's a Templar order. The Skull and Bones is a Templar symbol, right? And we hear these stories about George Bush or whoever, like these initiation rituals into the Skull and Bones, and he has to literally give fellatio to the Grand Master, whatever you want to call him, of the Skull and Bones Society, right? Same gay stuff that was going on back then with the Knights Templars. I'm just waiting until YouTube cuts this stream. You want to bet YouTube cuts this stream? I guarantee you, probably happen, or they're going to remove it later. Anyways, Earthgoat Test says, I guess I could be considered God then because I've been writing my own law. Okay, so that's a good example. All right, so you're not considered God because no one else is under your law unless they consent to be under your law. How do you enforce your law? How would you enforce your law? You have to have consent. You can't affect somebody's free will. That's how they get you. So that's what Austin's trying to say, is he's trying to say you can't actually make law. You can propose a contract, private law between people, and get people to agree to it, right? but you don't actually make something that everyone is under no matter what, because it's fundamentally wrong and there's a karmic consequence against breaking that law. That's what natural law is, right? So everybody knows it's wrong to kill somebody unless it's in self-defense. So yeah, I know that. You guys can just read that one for sure. But and then again, it's not just them though. It's not just those people. It's an elite group of sodomites, I'm telling you. So just look at what we have here recently with the P. Diddy thing, right? That exposed the whole sodomite underpinning of the entertainment industry, essentially. Okay. So, see, EarthGoat Test says, I enforce it when they enter my home, and I turn off my computer for updates without my consent. Well, what do you do in consequence against them? How do you enforce that? Like, what do you do to cause them injury or any in retaliation for violating this law that they didn't agree to? See, when you turned on your computer and you installed Windows or whatever applications are on your computer, you agreed as part of the terms of service of using these products to allow them to enter your home. So they have your consent there. But when you've created this law where and I understand where you're coming from, but I'm just trying to get you to see the way that it actually works. What do you do to enforce the law that you've created and to void the contracts that you've entered into that allow them to basically update your computer, do whatever they want, watch you through your phone and computer and video game system or whatever you might have? How do you enforce that? Right? So I agree with you. Godzilla. I know. We're on YouTube, though. We're going to try to keep this stream up because they have become more lax with certain things, and this needs to be pointed out, dude. I mean, look at Target. And this all goes hand in hand, this whole sodomite. And in the Bible, believe me, I'm not a thumper, and I'm far from perfect or any kind of Christian type of person to even look at in that sense. But in the Bible, and I do know the Bible pretty well, and in the Bible, there were two cities absolutely nuked and wiped off the face of the planet. What were they destroyed for? Right? They were just destroyed for sodomy. That's where the term sodomy comes from, Sodom and Gomorrah. So anyways, we have, however, this charge is hypocritical as the homo practices were common in every Christian monastic order and among Catholic clergy as well. So not surprisingly, official penalties for that behavior within the clergy, both by the church and temporal authorities, were rarely codified or enforced. Several bishops in the Middle Ages were taught by their contemporaries to have gay relationships and were potentially romantic or sexual, and there was a potentially romantic or sexual tone to the correspondence of others with passionate male friends. Right. So this is a common reoccurring theme among the powers, whether it be temporal or spiritual. But at its root, so you got to remember when you're talking about Catholic clergy or they're under Roman civil law, which is not common law at all. It's essentially just layers of presumption and contract going all the way back to the 12 tables when Emperor Nero burned Rome to the ground with the consent of the Senate, and then did his own version, the very first version of the Set the KV Act, where he said, okay, well, Rome just burnt to the ground. So now if you need to come and prove that you're alive and claim your property, otherwise the property comes under administration by the Roman state, right? Or the Roman emperor. It was the very first. And then ever since then, civil law was born and they dictate the use of the property, and everybody's considered infants subject to the God King, which is still going on today, obviously. And, part of the use of the property includes your own body because you're an infant. So much like you tell your child to stay out of the road or not touch a hot stove or anything like that, they feel that they have the same right to tell you what to do with your body, what to put in or not put in your body, and all of that good stuff. And while they have you under this system of law and you consent to it, you have no access to common law because you have no real property rights. But at common law, all of this right here is unlawful. Could not happen. Has been a crime, was a crime in this country, and was a crime in other countries that practice common law while it still existed. So we're going to pop over here to this one. So this is actually written by a gay dude. And his name is the Templar Knight. Imagine that. Thank you, Gordzilla. I appreciate it. He says this channel's still the best on YouTube. I appreciate that. So this is written by a gay dude who calls himself the Templar Knight. And so he actually puts out an argument because he's proud of this and he wants this to be the case. And listen, let me put this out there that I have no literal problem with what people do behind closed doors. But when you start trying to affect my property rights so that I'm forced to accept it and actually approve of it, otherwise I'm hateful, then we have a problem. Or when you're pushing it on my children, or when you're putting it all over television and everywhere I look, I got to see this shit. Now we have a problem. You know, if you think about it, the inverse of that does not happen. You know what I mean? You've never seen a straight pride parade where people are walking on the road banging each other. I've never seen one anyway. And if anybody has, please tell me, because I don't know everything, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist. You know, you don't see a straight pride parade where people are walking on the street with assless chaps, or, oh my God, my dad showed me this one video the other day where this dude's literally dressed in a penis outfit with a lady part between the legs and like a skirt, and he's taken his head, which is the you know what I mean, and basically is simulating fornication right there in the middle of the road with his costume. And this is the type of people we're dealing with, and that's why they hate common law so much, because you would string those people up. You know what I mean? Metaphorically, of course, analogously string them up, but seriously, it's illegal. So Gordzilla says, I have a problem with what they do behind closed doors leading down to them. Yeah, well, that's a Rumble conversation for sure. And I will do a Rumble exclusive. This one probably should have been, but we're going to test and see how tolerant YouTube's become. So let's look at some of the testimonies of the alleged victims. Right. Oh, well, hold on. Let's read this. He says, most mainstream historians, blushing as they write, dismiss entirely the allegations of sodomy leveled at the Knights Templar in 1307 by the King of France, Philip IV. They even try to argue that the medieval sodomy had nothing to do with being gay. I guess it was about dominance or something. Like, what do you mean? Okay. Anyway, as apparently homosexuality was only invented by Freudians in the late 19th century. What? Okay, at least he finds that ridiculous also. However, let's argue for the sake of it that Philip was onto something and that there was no smoke without fire. You guys know I say that all the time. I say that about Duffy and the Final Experiment, that Bob Enyart fella and John Benet Ramsey. There's a lot of smoke around that whole situation. I'm not trying to bring up something that has nothing to do with this, but where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a lot of smoke around Duffy and the gang over there, and how offended they get when you bring up certain things about either gayness or, we're not going to get there. But let's consider this. If an organization today was accused of widespread institutionalized sexual abuse within its ranks, would we dismiss them out of hand? Well, that happens all the time. I'm pretty sure that black book of Epstein's is still missing. Who's got that again? Oh, an attorney. An attorney has that. Pam fucking Bondi, who I do not trust at all. Which, I mean, how could you never trust an attorney? But she just, her record's not very good. And I don't know how anybody thinks that was a good idea. So, no, we'd listen sympathetically to the testimonies of those abused and demand that the abusers account for themselves. In our own times, the Roman Catholic Church and other institutions have been named and shamed over serial abuse. So why do modern historians breezily wave away the charges of sodomy with regards to the Templars? So here's some of the accusations. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's important to know because remember, the Inns of Court are in the old Templar building. The word esquire, which all attorneys are, means shield bearer or attendant to a knight. And then all attorneys essentially come out of the Inns of Court in the old Templar building, and every problem in the world without exception is because of the bar associations, without exception. You can't bring up one problem that's going on in the world that the bar association, these satanic sodomites, didn't create. There's not one. There's not one. They're the reason that you get taxed for your labor. They're the reason you can't own property. They're the reason that you have to be licensed to feed your family or do anything. They're the reason that people starve to death. They create the groundwork and legislation for the central banks to come in and be established in the first place. Right? You got to think, without the bar, And without these lawyers, there would be no way for the central banks to have a foothold in each country around the world. So they're literally the cause of all the world's problems. And, if you simply got rid of the bar tomorrow, if you got rid of the Inns of Court and the Bar Association tomorrow, everything would begin clearing up immediately. You might have a little bit of chaos at first as people readjust to not having somebody tell them how to use their own body and everything and property, but everything would begin getting better almost immediately. So Earthgoat Test says this has to do with some sort of spiritual thing in the down below area. Yes, when penetrated runs an important energy system center, which makes one subject to the rule of another. Exactly. Yeah, it's dominance. Yeah, I agree with that. The root chakra is located in that area, and that's generally what they're getting after, right? So, and but look at all the industries, right? Well, let's get into some of these Templar accusations. So John of Cugy, a 53-year-old Templar who had been a keeper of the mills in Paris, told an inquisitor that the visitor of France, a very senior Templar knight, had taken him behind the altar and kissed him on the base of his spine and navel. After that, he was told to spit on the crucifix. Ithier of Rochefort, under torture, admitted to obscene kisses. And now, see, under torture, okay. You know what I mean? Okay. Like, I get it. You're being tortured. You're going to say whatever you got to say to stop being tortured. And that's a plausible defense. But they're all talking about the same type of shit under separate torturing instances. And now, after the torture was done by the inquisitors, a lot of them recanted, but a lot of them didn't. A lot of them were like, that's what happened. You know what I mean? And like I said, just go back to look at our presidents. Look at the presidents around the world. That Macron fella over in France, married to somebody who's allegedly his father, allegedly, of course, right? Dressed up like a woman. Definitely not a woman. I mean, we can all pretty much see that. And I think Candace Owens is right about that. It's not a woman. Look at Sandra Bullock, which means bull nuts, right? Look at all these transformers all throughout the entertainment industry, all throughout politics. Everywhere. It seems like every time you get to the bottom of some sort of conspiracy, there's a donut puncher, dude. There's some sort of pillow biter at the bottom of every single conspiracy. They hate women and they hate families. Okay. They hate women, they hate families, and they are by nature, because they produce and procreate nothing. They produce a lot of, money or whatever. They're good at business. But remember, it's a gay system in itself because there is no actual interplay between the polarities. It's just the same debt for debt. So it's a gay economic system, and they're great at it, right? But they produce nothing, and by their very nature, they are anti-life, right? They are part of, if one believed in evolution, which I do not, you would say that they are created as a course correction for population. And that, and there are people that actually make that argument. If I believed in evolution and believed that was the case of how we got here and didn't know that we were created, I could see it. I'd be like, okay, well, yeah, you start putting these out when nature would put these out. And of course, it assumes an intelligence in nature in the first place, which makes it contradictory. But, okay, nature puts these things out these people out in order to curb population because they produce nothing. They produce no heirs. Okay. And that's one of the big problems with them at common law, because it's all about the descent of property, and it's all about the caretaking of the earth that we've been granted, this world that we've been granted. And the sodomy and that type of lifestyle cannot create heirs. It's antithetical to life. And that's why it's unlawful at common law to be a bugger. All right. And that is the very base point of what I'm trying to explain. They hate God and they hate the common law because they feel like I am the way I am. And I couldn't say one way or the other. Maybe they are. Maybe they're possessed. I don't know what it is, right? I couldn't know. I do know that the idea of it is repulsive. But again, that's why I said, if you want to keep that behind closed doors, it's your business. But when you start bringing it out and actually use it and trying to conquer the world just so you can be openly a deviant and force everybody to accept it, I have a problem. I have a problem with that. They hate women, they hate families, and they're anti-life. So let's get into more of these. Ithier of Rochefort, under torture, admitted to obscene kisses and the incitement to homosexuality. Nicholas of Sara denied the holiness of an effigy of Christ before stripping off and being kissed again at the base of the spine, the navel, and the mouth. That's gross. Ralph of Granville had homosexuality enjoined upon him via the usual kiss. So it's all the same kisses they keep saying over and over again, right? And if you're just now joining us, remember this is important because Templars the word Templar means a student of the law, and the Inns of Court are in the old Templar building, and Esquire, which all attorneys are shield bearers in attendance to a knight. Now we have to wonder how they're attending to these knights, right? Which brings us to another point. That's where the globe lie comes in so heavily, right? The heliocentric. Now it's so funny because when people put out these heliosexuals, I love balls, it's actually, that's true. You have no idea how true that actually is, right? Hey, Sarah G, good to see you over there, just joined us. You have no idea how true that actually is. You know, one of my favorite memes, the one with the Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and all them dudes dressed like ancient Greek, you know, and it says heliosexuals, we love balls. Hilarious. And it's true. And the whole belief in dinosaurs, which was created by the Royal Society in the 1800s, and there's never actually been any dinosaurs found or bones found or any of that stuff. Or even like recently today with the direwolf thing. Oh, we resurrected a direwolf that's been extinct for 15,000 years. How the fuck would you know how long it's been extinct for? Well, we use carbon dating. Oh, okay, what's carbon dating? Well, we measure how much carbon 14 breaks down over time, and then we assume that it started with this much and that it breaks down. See, there's that word assume. We assume that it started with this much carbon 14 and then it's broke down at a consistent rate of this that we can see in other things for the period of time. And so we determine that the amount of carbon 14 that's in it now compared to what we assume must have been in it to begin with, it must have taken this long to have broken down. So it's 50 gajillion bazillion years old. And we see that it's amazing. We found it because it's science. It's science, right? And people eat this shit up because all the news has to do is say scientists say, right? Archaeologists have found some sort of prominent title. And that's all, you know what I mean? That's all they have to say. And people hook, line, and sinker. Holy shit, they resurrected a direwolf from Game of Thrones. It's amazing. Did you know that Jon Snow actually existed 4 cajillion years ago? And that there was a kingdom of fairy apes and shit? Like, it literally so stupid. And there's no way they could know this shit. There's no way they could know this shit. And so the reason that they do this, you know, astrophysics and all as well. If we assume Venus is 4 million light years away, and then we can calculate this over, and you don't know any of this shit. You don't know any of it. And the reason they do it is because they have to hide God, because it's a simple jump. Just like when people come to realize that heliocentrism is a lie, they usually go right to the Bible. Well, once you go to the Bible, then you realize that many things that you are told are lawful are actually unlawful. Like registering your car is a form of usury, and that's unlawful, right? And once you get to the Bible, you start to, and if you come across a channel like mine who teaches you about common law, then you realize that the entire system is set up on your consent. The only way that they can enforce acceptance of their deviance is curviverts. That's funny. The only way that they can set up the system and force acceptance of deviancy is by your consent. That's it. So they had to either by presumption through your lack of, through you not withdrawing consent, or by actual implicit consent. You come under their authority by giving them control over your property and your rights to property. And now they can tell you what to do because you're an infant. And it's the doctrine of parens patriae, which is the government as parent. And that's and the reason they do this is 1, power and control, but 2, I personally believe because they're a bunch of sodomites. I mean, the Diddy thing really blows it wide open, right? I mean, this dude, in order to be anyone in the rap industry, and especially at Bad Boy Records, you had to get popped by Diddy. You had to get diddied. The diddler, right? Oh, look at who we have with us. We got my dad, Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind.
Let's see, talking about their The Templars and stuff there. I will strike you with my sword of sodomy.
I mean, dude, yeah, some of these things that they were accused of doing, like they had to kiss the Grandmaster's ass. And then I was associating this with just look at like the Skull and Bones Society, which is a Templar organization. The Skull and Bones, which it's funny because it's a Jolly Roger, the pirate's flag, and that's exactly what all cops and lawyers are doing is inland piracy. So it fits so perfectly, and it's a death cult where the real living you is presumed to be dead. But anyways, in the Skull and Bones Society, which you remember, what was that one reporter where he's like, so what do you think conspiracy theorists will say about both you, George Bush, and Mr. Kerry being part of that secret society, the Skull and Bones Society? He goes, well, I think that's a secret, and I can't really say a whole I can't say a whole lot about that. But what I can tell you is my opponent, John Kerry, is an asshole, right? And then he asked John Kerry. Then the dude dies in a car accident shortly thereafter.
What's that guy's name?
I can't remember. You guys can look at. I cannot remember.
It was Tim something, man.
Tim Rupert or something like that. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And but then you see the things that they have to do to become part of the Skull and Bones. The people that film the initiation ritual at the college. What is it, Yale?
Yeah,
that they filmed, they got to sit there and like tell their darkest sexual fantasies to the other members. They've got to like masturbate in front of them. And then it's alleged that to join completely, you have to give fellatio to the head of the order at that point in time, which is funny because when George W. Bush became a Skull and Bones member, his daddy was the head. So that's a pretty interesting situation, right? And
it's I've often thought that. I mean, it's pretty gay for you to go and suck a guy's dick, but it's even gayer for you to want to have another dude suck your dick. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I always say, man, whether you're pitching or you're catching, you're still playing the game.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean? You're still playing. It was Tim Russet, palpable.
Yeah, Tim Russet. That's right.
Tim Russet. So, but yeah, whether you're pitching or you're catching, you're still playing. You're still on a team. So, but yeah, and that's why they have to hide God. That's why there's such an all-out assault to hide God. And I believe it primarily. I believe the heliocentrism, the dinosaur myth, the evolution myth, and all of these things all come back to making sure that they can subvert common law so that they can openly be deviants. And in fact, like I said, make it a hate crime. If you say otherwise, if you say, hey, you're a deviant, or you're going to jail for a hate crime, 22 months in prison over in England. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look at that Keir Starmer fella. You know anything about him?
No.
Oh, well, dude.
The problem with that is that who gets to be the arbitrator of what's hate speech?
Well, people who have control over you as an infant. See, they got to protect the other infants from you as an infant because they give you privileges they call civil rights, right? And part of those civil rights, which are actually privileges by you being an infant under them, is gay rights and trans rights. And so they have to make good on their part of the agreement of you coming under them, and they have to protect you from the other infants who might say mean and hateful things to you, which are not actually mean and hateful at all. They're just like, hey, dude, that's like, 2 entire cities got wiped off the face of the earth because of that type of stuff there. Did you know that?
Oh, we're well beyond that. When I saw that thing that I sent you, I couldn't believe that. I was like, that's performance art.
Yeah, that's what I was telling him about. I don't know if you were listening, but I was telling him about, like, this is, and you don't see like a straight pride parade where somebody's dressed up like that, doing that type of stuff. You know what I mean? You don't even see a straight pride parade. You don't go, I'm proud to be a heterosexual, right? And so I'm going to wear some assless chaps and helicopter my dinghy in front of everybody, right? Or dress up in a big phallus outfit with a vagina underneath it and simulate intercourse right in the middle of the street. You know what I mean? And can you imagine 100 years ago what would have happened to somebody like that? Actually, a little more than 100.
Dude, during those pride festivals, I saw there was dudes walking around with ass chaps and blowing each other on the street. And there was some other ones that was in a tub, like a kid little wading pool. And they're kneeled down while dudes were pissing on their faces and in their mouth and shit. and there's kids walking around and everything. And on the other side of the street was a dude preaching the Bible. And the fucking cops came over and arrested that guy.
I seen that. They arrested him. Well, because the Bible's hate speech. You should know that. the Bible, preaching the Bible is hate speech against the Rainbow Warriors. So look what Sarah G said a frat on her campus, hazing, they would ejaculate on a Ritz cracker, and then the prospective member. Now, did the prospective members know they were eating it? I mean, not that it makes it much better, but I mean, it just kind of makes them included in the grossness if they did.
Yeah, if they didn't know, that makes the dude that did it an asshole. If the dudes knew it and did it, then everybody's an asshole.
Everyone's an asshole. Yeah, absolutely. Tress says, this is incredibly disturbing to me, but it needs to be known. All of this that has been happening, and thank goodness for the Second Amendment. Well, see, and the Second Amendment is why we're not like England. So I'm glad you bring that up. The Second Amendment is why during COVID, we didn't end up like Australia or Canada with whole SWAT teams coming and arresting you if you ended up outside of your quarantine zone, because they knew they could only push so far in this country. And like Emperor Hirohito said, during World War II, the reason he didn't invade mainland United States is because behind every blade of grass would be an American with a gun. And that's a fact. That's a fact, man. And so, yes, thank God that the founding fathers had the foresight, at least the patriotic ones, the ones who weren't probably sodomite scumbags like Ben Franklin. And I'm really suspicious of George Washington at this point, you know. A lot of them I'm real suspicious of.
Man, most of them you go back and look and their wives look like dudes, man.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And we still have that prevalent thing today. That's like another thing that clicked for me when I read in that book where the guy's like, all around we witness kingdoms in open and internal rebellion to the common law. And the whole book is making a legal argument for faggotry, right? And he sits there and says, we see him open. And so I'm like, that's why they want to get rid of common law. And then you just look around at all the leaders and all the like women, quote unquote, women in Hollywood, right? And like Lady Gaga, you know, she straight had a donger and you could see it at one of her concerts. And then she was asked by Anderson Cooper about it. It's like, you know, a lot of people say that you have a penis. And she's like, so would it be so bad if I did? You know, it's like, well, I mean, kind of, you know,
yeah, it would.
Yeah, a little bit.
You have to sit here talking to some kind of a Fruit Loop, man.
Right. Yeah. You have a mental illness. So, I mean, yeah, it would probably be a problem. So, and then you look at this like that Macron over in France. People are saying that his wife is his daddy.
Yeah, allegedly.
Yeah. Right. And the resemblance is uncanny. And Sandra Bullock, which means bull nuts, right? Yeah. And then Beyonce, which means boy once.
Boy once.
And you look at the whole Diddy situation and what was going on over there. All these insiders in the music industry have come out and said, hey, man, anybody who's going to be anybody, you can look at your favorite rapper or your famous artist, and they've been popped. Yep. Because you have to. Right. Yep. So, and then and then I'm like, dude, that's what this actually is. It's a big gay mafia that's they hate God. They need to get people to not believe in God. So they come up with all these ridiculous theories like evolution and dinosaurs and fucking heliocentrism. Right. Because I remember from my own personal experience when I was like 17, 18 years old and I was trying to find God. You know, I'm trying to what is the meaning of life? That's the type of stuff. I remember I'm like, well, the Bible can't be right because it doesn't make sense when you take into account, space and other planets and aliens and all that. That wouldn't make any sense. What, he just created this place special and then the rest of the places, he's just not God of those places. And it's such an effective tool for removing you from knowledge of creation and who you are and where we're at in creation. It's highly effective. And so, and they have to do it. Like the direwolf thing, I don't know if you heard me talking to them about that, but they're like, oh, we brought it back. It's 10 to 15,000 years. It's been extinct. How the fuck would you know how long it's what?
I know. And let's not forget the coelacanth. Okay. They thought that this thing was extinct all these years because all they'd ever found was a fossil, blah, 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 blah. And then some fishermen off the coast of South Africa caught one.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Or do you remember when they had tried to fake we found the missing link, and it was like some skull they pieced together and made it out of like the animal and human skull, and then tried to pass it off in a museum like, oh, this was the missing link where we evolved from monkeys, right?
Yep.
Is it, well, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Let's start there.
It's
right?
like so stupid. They want to deny creation, but it always takes them back to creation every time.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Some people tried to postulate that homosexuality is nature's way of course correcting, in the whole like evolution and overpopulation theories, which are both fraudulent. But it's like, even when you say something like that, you still have to presuppose a supreme intelligence in nature, right? Which is divine. So it's all ridiculous. Tommy Rogers says, my new Canadian Prime Minister, Carney, yeah, he's a real piece of work, has female to male training all over. His wife has an Adam's apple as big as my fist. The carnival. It is a carnival, man. It's a clown show. And that Carney dude's bad news. Bad news for Canada, for sure. He was
funny that his name's Carney. That's what they call the hucksters that work at a fucking carnival, is a carny.
Well, he's definitely a huckster. He was he was the head of the Bank of England right before he came over to be the prime minister.
Carney.
Yeah.
I suppose. And here's Prime Minister Carney, and over here we have the Prime Minister Conman, and over here we've got President Grifter. It's like, do they really have these names? It's like throwing it right out in your face, man. I bet you that ain't even their real fucking name. They just do that to make fun of you.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that they assume names as like a form of mockery, 100%. I mean, some of them are so ridiculous. Like, what was the one?
Phil McCracken.
Yeah, no, but Mulvaney. That's gross. That's just a fucking gross name.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like, especially when you associate with that being a transformer, right?
Oh, man.
But, yeah, as a Mulvaney. Right, gross. Sam Bankman-Fried, like that's, and then you got this fried stoner looking dude that's being blamed for stealing billions of dollars. And
here's an interesting connection, man. Did you know that all this transgender shit and all these different genders that they push and everything, that shit all comes right out of the Talmud?
I didn't know that, but
yeah, so that ought to tell you something too, where it's actually who's steering it. Who the fuck is actually steering it? Once again, it's the fucking Jews again.
But see, then again, so that's where I was trying to tell him, like, and I understand where you're coming from, and I don't disagree to a certain extent, but you can't say it's the Jews necessarily, because that entire sect, and that goes back to like what the Templars are, what the Assassins, the assassins were, and it's not Judaism. Well, I guess you could say it's Talmudic Judaism, but it's not Judaism. It's not Christianity, and it's not necessarily Islam either. It's this ancient Babylonian subversive cult that is inside of those three. Do you see what I'm saying? That, yes, manifests a lot of their beliefs in the Talmud most openly, is actually the only, like, if you want to even consider it Abrahamically sourced text that has a reference to anything other than male and female. That's a fact. But it's actually this cult within a cult, and it's a death cult. That's why, you got the skull and bones. That's why it's a death cult. They worship death. They're anti-life. There's nothing positive or productive that comes from that lifestyle, at least not in the sense of creating life. You might be a good business owner or whatever the case may be, but none of that stuff actually helps to create life. And I think that a lot of these judges around the country and around the world, a lot of these judges are sodomites. I think that's one of the things that draws them to being a judge, is playing God. I think
Mike Pence is a BDSM sodomite pedo.
I agree. Yeah, I did hear that.
His wife helped facilitate it, man. She's like she procures the fucking kids for him.
Well, your John McCain's wife comes out and she says, "Oh, we know what Epstein's been doing for years." It's just everyone was afraid to do anything about it. You know why they're afraid to do anything about it?
Because they're involved,
right? Because they're clients, obviously. It's just like this Pam Bondi broad. It's like, I see this chick, And she goes to, so Trump's like, yeah, we're going to get things turned around. I do like what he's doing with the tariffs. That was necessary and should have been done a long time ago. But outside of that, he appoints these people that are like Pam Bondi appoints her. And he's like, yeah, we're going to get tough. We're going to take out all these people that are behind Epstein and behind the JFK assassination, all this stuff. And then you look at this chick's record, right? And the very first thing she does when she's made attorney general is try to appoint this fucking scumbag sheriff in Florida who was arresting people for being out during the lockdowns and tried to shut down churches. That was her first go-to. She's like, oh, he's a good buddy of mine. Oh, I bet he is. Thank you for showing me who you are now. Right. But I should have known anyways, an attorney who's prominent, an esquire who's prominent enough to be the attorney general has to be a scumbag.
Well, look at how she done, man. She was like, oh, man, on day one, I've got those right on my desk. I've got that whole list right there on my desk, and we're going to release it. And then she says, oh, we're having trouble getting the FBI to release it. And it's like, wait a minute. Don't you like fucking boss the FBI around? Aren't you like the top dog? And what happened? They came and got him off your desk and hit him again or something? What in the fuck are you doing?
Right. That should have been. Yeah, exactly. And wouldn't you at least check what you had before you went all over on this news circuit and had a bunch of social media influencers come out and wave fucking binders around saying phase one, right? Phase one of what? The psychological operation? Is that what phase one we're talking about here? Because no, you're full of shit, lady. You're full of shit. Yeah. And it goes back to, so the temples, again, in the Templar building, right? The middle temple, the inner temple that's in the old Templar church in the Crown District of London, they control everything. So you even have like this, you've got in the media, this Judge Boasberg, who's like, I'll bring back these illegals or whatever, if you want to get into that type of stuff. But my point in bringing them up is that you just look at who they're related or associated with. So you got Chief Justice John Roberts and Judge Boasberg are both members of the American Middle Temple. And they were actually awarded by the Middle Temple Society in England. Right? Uh-huh. So you can see who's pulling the strings and causing all of these problems. It's the fucking Bar Association every single time. So who created the legislation to create NASA? The fucking Bar Association.
Yeah.
Every single time, dude. Every single time it's the Bar Association. They're a bunch of sodomite scumbags who want to replace God with contract law. See, because the one thing God doesn't do is he doesn't affect our free will. They take that knowledge and they use it and they say, okay, well, we can't just overtly, conquer these people. We can for a time, but that always ends up in a revolution. So what we have to do this time is we have to subvert their free will. Then God won't get involved because he doesn't affect free will and everybody's agreed to be in this situation. And then we can literally create a satanic empire on earth. And that's what they're doing. That's what the Bar does. Right? So, I mean, and they know all this. They know this. They have to know this. And I'm not talking about your average attorney, but I'm talking about once you get up to the high levels and especially in the Inns of Court, they know all this stuff because they use all the symbolism of the ancient mysteries of Babylon in everything that they do. I mean, the Baphomet is a perfect example of the knowledge of the ancient mysteries, right? Of the knowledge of good and evil is what it all represents. So you had at the floor of the Exchequer, which was the floor of the Exchequer, which is basically the Chancery Court, the same thing as equity, what we're in over here today, because it's all the same shit. And it's checkered with black and white, right? And then underneath that floor, underneath that Exchequer, there's a place called hell. And hell is where the king's debtors are held, because when you're in debt or you're bankrupt, you're in hell. Somebody else has complete control over your will. It's a big satanic sodomite agenda, dude. There's no question about it. So, and the direwolf thing, they just keep pumping this shit out in our faces all the time. The direwolf, the saving the astronauts was a good one. Wasn't it magical when the fucking dolphins came up to
that was the dumbest shit I ever saw. Them dolphins came because that broad hadn't changed your drawers in 8 months. They said that them dolphins thought that somebody's passing out mackerels.
Yes. Yeah, that's disgusting, dude. That's gross. But yes,
I mean, think about that. She got a tan somehow while she was up there.
And dyed her hair.
Yeah, man.
She dyed her hair. It was pretty.
Her hair was still sticking up when she came down too. It's like,
remember, did you see the video of like the approach and everything where it was just intentional? But you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. That's how you can tell it's real. And I think
that's the standard you have to go by. That's what Elon told us.
Well, yeah, because it looks so fake that it has to be real.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I think that NASA right there is a serpent's tongue, right? Licking the ring of Saturn. And the word NASA means to beguile, to deceive, right? And that's you can look in a concordance. You can go to blueletterbible.org, look in that verse where it says and I think it's encoded numerologically too, like 1333 or something. But anyways, it says the Satan beguiled me. And it means, and the word beguile is nasha, which is NASA, right? In fact, we can do that now since I have this. You can just go to Blue Letter Bible, right? And then we can go to Genesis, because I'm curious as to what the numerological coding is, because that's another thing, another way they do some of this stuff. So let's see here. Skip over. Whoops, that is not what we wanted to do. We wanted to go to the next chapter. I usually do this on my phone. I'm not very good at doing it on my let's do word search. Okay, so we'll do beguiled. Whoops. And God said unto the woman, what is it thou hast done? Yeah, 313. I'm sorry. I knew it was some sort of numerological encoding. 313. There you go. The Illuminati 13, all that good stuff, right? So it's right here, right in your face. So we'll go to tools and we'll go down to beguiled me. And we'll click this H5377 here. And it is right here. NASA, Nasha, right? It's right there in your face. And that's why they have the serpent's tongue on the logo. And it says to be beguiled, to beguile, to deceive, right? And all the other places. Just a little interesting side note there.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, and it's coded 313. And so then, here's another interesting thing you guys are probably
that's Detroit's area code.
313. Yeah, hey, that's actually
just a side note. Today I was watching that Michigan constitutional crusader guy. He goes around and audits places. He was at the Waterford Township Library today.
And he was doing an audit at the Waterford Township Library?
Yeah, armed.
How'd that go for him? Because Waterford cops are douchebags.
Pretty good. Nobody bothered calling him.
No?
So it didn't seem like there was any kind of a problem took place. I mean, they seemed to be kind of perturbed about it. But once he went inside the place and they were showing him all around and everything, so I would say they passed.
Here's another. So a lot of the numerological encodings that they do. Whoops. Blue Letter Bible. And that was a .org. Yeah. So .org. A lot of the numerological encodings that they do come straight out of the Bible, which is another funny thing where how they tried to deny the Bible. Because watch this. So we'll go down to Genesis. We'll go down to where it talks about the knowledge of the fruit of good and evil, right? And that's going to be another numerological encoding, saying of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. No, where it introduces the serpent. I'm sorry, that's the other numerological encoding. So where the serpent comes to tempt 3:1, right? Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. And when you go down to where it tells it to eat, and the eyes were 3:7. 3:6. There you go. 3:6. 3:1. It's all encoded in threes. You know what I mean? 33. I bet if you go down to a verse 33, it's going to be something that they're up to. And they all know this is how they hide this shit from everybody. So I don't know. I'll just pick the next random 33 we come across. 32. No. Yeah, but just check it out sometime. If you guys go instead of actually reading it, well, I mean, of course, read it, but instead of actually reading it, go through and actually just look numerologically at the different verses that are important that talk about Nephilim, that talk about any of this stuff, and it encodes like 33, 313, just like that, the Beguile 313, and then they use this to talk to each other in symbolism and language, like the McDonald's symbol and all that stuff. And what do you think about? Did you see that new KFC commercial, by the way? You want to talk about satanic?
Yeah, that's pretty fucking disturbing, man.
Right? They freaking dip the dude into the gravy, and he becomes a big chicken tender.
Well, what are they actually telling us? Is this revelation of the method?
Exactly. No, it has to be, because remember, it's all about not being able to subvert free will.
Right.
So they have to get consent in some form or another. So most of television, most movies, most everything they do is manufacturing consent. I
tell you what, I'm 60 years old and I've never seen a new graveyard. A lot of people have died between that time. I've been all over the place. You never see, oh, look, there's a brand new graveyard. Geez, they only have one grave in it so far. You never see that.
No, you never see a new graveyard. You never really even see anything happening at graveyards, very often.
Well, that's the thing too, is you don't see that. You don't see new graveyards. They found human DNA in every fast food restaurant food. And the movie Soylent Green takes place in 2024.
Does it?
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Yeah, that's pretty gross.
You just go to the McDonald's and get yourself some Granny McNuggets, man.
Some people McNuggets.
Yeah, some Uncle Bill McNuggets and shit,
So we'll get a little bit back into this because I'm telling you, this is what it all boils back down to. And I'm not saying it's the Templar order as it exists today, because I don't think they stayed being the Templars after they were excommunicated. I think they went underground and dispersed amongst a bunch of other secret societies. They're probably what reemerged as the Illuminati today. Okay. And the funny thing about that, since we're talking about lawyers and Templars, Esquires, and Sodomites, Adam Weishaupt was, guess what? A lawyer, who was the guy who founded the Illuminati. And the entire base plan of the Illuminati is communism. That's, if you read their letters back and forth, or you read books about them or anything like that, the entire base plan was communism. How do you get communism? By creating a feudal system through presumption and contract, where you remove all property rights from everybody and put all property control and ownership, and that includes control of labor, right, in people's bodies. You place that into a government, and the Illuminati are entirely behind this push for communism today. That is absolute. I mean, we got open communists on the Supreme Court. We've got open communists. The whole court system is entirely communist, right? And again, it goes back to government replacing God, because they're a bunch of sodomites. So I think the Templar order reemerged as the Illuminati, and I think that's what we're dealing with now. And so I'm going to look at a little bit more. So this was written by this guy who's gay, right? You can tell because he's trying to make an argument for, like, even the Templars were gay.
Like that makes them better or something.
Right. Yeah. I was like, dude, it's totally cool to be gay because the Templars were gay. So, oh, no, that just makes things make a lot more sense.
Well, Billy does it.
Right. William of Geox said that while he was in Cyprus as a brother serving with the knights, he had carnal relations with the Grand Master Jacques de Molay, who was later burnt at the stake in 1314. So this guy's saying, were they all liars? One riposte, I'm not sure what that word is. I've never seen it before. Is that these confessions were extracted under torture, and many Templars later retracted their testimonies when summoned to hearings. Yet there were those who stuck to their confessions. They persisted in claiming that initiation ceremonies, obscene kissing, was the order of the day. One described entering into a dark room to find the master naked, lying on his back, and demanding a series of kisses all over his body. Gross. He says, it doesn't matter that the word homosexuality didn't exist. Those who claim that there was no concept of male-on-male love are talking, with all due respect, out of their backsides. Male-on-male sexual activity was recognized in medieval law as a subset of sodomy. In fact, in legal codes, here we go, In legal codes from both Western Europe and the Byzantine Empire, we see specific punishments for homosexual acts as opposed to sodomy in the form of masturbation, sodomy, obviously, intercourse with nuns, which were all specified as well with distinct penalties. So it says both homosexuality and non-reproductive heterosexual sex were regarded with contempt, seen as unbalancing of the divinely ordained natural order. But the coupling of men attracted a particular opprobrium. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't even read this far into the article, and this is exactly what the point of this whole is. Lawyers are basically making a safe haven for sodomites. In medieval literature, from Geoffrey Chaucer's Partner's Tale to John Gower's Confessio Amantis, men who are attracted to other men are derided to varying degrees, but their existence is certainly not denied. Chaucer, so I guess he's saying that people are saying that like this whole homosexual thing is a new thing, and that in medieval times, people are saying that in medieval times it didn't exist, which is ridiculous because it's right in the Bible. It says the more conservative Gower regarded same sex as not only the polluting of the individual, but a threat to the whole society. Now, when you look at what the National Socialist Germany were doing, right, and what they were getting rid of, and when they were burning books, what type of books were they burning? Were they just didn't want people to read? They wanted dark ages of ignorance, or what kind of books were they burning? Who knows the answer to that one?
There's them kind of books like I got today, like My Mommy Has a Dick and shit like that, you know.
Right. My Two Daddies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So the response to this from some historians is that only the passive, active, or submissive dominant roles meant anything, as in the Roman Empire. In other words, in the modern homosexual heterosexual dichotomy was alien to medieval people. I don't think that's true at all. So he says it gets tougher for medieval gays. He's like, oh, we were so oppressed. Well, the problem is that you guys seem to always want to undermine society and remove the natural order of things, obviously, because that's the very nature of your lifestyle.
Well, wait a second. Why are they acting like this is all new and persecution of it is new and everything else? Seems to me that the word sodomite came from the city of Sodom, because that's the kind of shit they were doing.
Yeah. Old Testament, Sodom and Gomorrah. That's literally where the term sodomy comes from. And it doesn't, and sodomy actually isn't just anal intercourse. Sodomy actually includes fellatio as well. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Ear sex, any of that weird shit, man.
Because it's ways that are unnatural, right? And most importantly, what's meant by unnatural is non-productive, because it's an anti-life activity, right? It is. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And that's why you notice that I think Satan, if you want to look at Satan as like an actual being, I think he's a flaming homosexual.
Look at what Sarah says. 70-year-old men can breastfeed now because science.
Oh yeah, what science says, right? Science says.
Science.
That's it. She got a trademark next to science. Look at that. Science trademark. Yeah.
Every time I see somebody screaming that science, I think of that Million Ways to Die in the West. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, I've seen that. It's pretty funny.
You know, that guy's selling those tonics and shit, and he goes, "There's flannel." He goes, "Yes, little tiny bits of flannel." He says, "Like, really?" And he goes, "It's the latest science." Like, that points up, says it so proudly, and I was like, "That's what these fucking globetards sound like, man." Science.
It's the same thing. Well, they tell you, like there's one Family Guy episode where they actually tell you that NASA means to deceive. There's like a fly on the wall, and it's spouting a bunch of what's supposed to be conspiracy theory, but is actually obviously true, because that's what conspiracy theories is. Conspiracy theories should just now be synonymous with truth that people don't want to hear. All right. But he said, yeah, I think Seth MacFarlane is knee deep in all that satanic horse shit. Obviously, he would have to be, right?
Yeah, you can tell he's light in his loafers just by the way he acts. He's got a lot of feminine qualities about him.
Yeah, again, and that's what it always goes about. Like, people probably see the title of this, or they like read what I put in the description, and they think I'm being crazy because it sounds like objectively it sounds crazy, right? Until you actually learn the law, what they primarily had to fight to have this openly accepting society today is the law. They had to subvert the law because you couldn't have anything like this. You could never have a parade like they have. You could never have drag queen story time. You can never have anything like that under actual law. So they primarily had to subvert the fucking law. And so let's look and see what he says here, because I'm going to get off this. But it says there's one account from the Scottish trials of the Templars where a priest claimed that as a child, his schoolmates would chase each other, threatening to plant a Templar kiss. The inference being that the homosexual behavior of the knights was well known for years. That's interesting. In the French trials, there were several testimonies detailing kisses all over the body, but especially on the base of the spine, which isn't that where root chakra? Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Most alarmingly, this happened to new initiates at rituals conducted behind closed doors. The kiss on the backside foreshadowed the osculum infame, or shameful kiss, that witches were said to offer the devil when he appeared at their black masses. You know what? I have read that before too, actually. It's my contention that the Templar trials were, in effect, the first of the witch trials that would transfix people from the 15th to early 18th centuries. The knights were being cast as heretics, come sorcerers, come sodomites. Yep. And now they control the entire system of law. How's that? Another feature of the future, and see, here you go. When you're talking about these witch trials, right? It's because the shit was unlawful. That's what the trials, the word trial, we're talking about law here. I'm telling you, it's sodomites subverting the law. It's a bunch of gay judges, gay lawyers, and I'm not saying all gay people are like this. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the movement in itself is subversive, anti-life, and trying to destroy the family and the woman, right? They hate women. That's the thing. They hate real women, like actual family, traditional women. They hate them. They absolutely hate them. They look at them as competition, and they're jealous of them. And for whatever other things, I can't even speculate what goes on in their mind, but that's what makes it. They want to destroy the family dynamic. They want to remove you from an understanding of creation and your creator, and they want to destroy the woman. And look at what we have with this whole boys playing in girls sports thing. I mean, who's going to sit there and watch a UFC match where this dude who used to be named Butch, but now identifies as Barbara, right? Is like a 270-pound, full-grown man is going to go up and fight this 140-pound woman. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's an exaggeration. But literally, you got these dudes, they're dudes. They have the full bone structure, musculature, bone density, everything of a man, built for, labor and protection, stuff like that. And they're going to go in, and who's going to watch a dude pummel this chick, right? Which is ordinarily a crime. He's going to watch this dude pummel this chick and then cheer, right? And then give him a belt, a champion belt. Good job, Barbara, right? You really had to fight for that one. So anyways, another feature of the future witch trials was the involvement of cats as familiars. And in the Templar trials, we hear descriptions of felines being kissed very inappropriately. Interesting. I've never heard that. The Templars were not only alleged heretics abusing cats, or were not the only alleged heretics abusing cats. Another sect, the Paterines, lowered a cat by a rope from the ceiling during their rituals and kissed its... All right. According to the Chronicle,
that's from South Park, man. That's cheesing. They call that cheesing, remember?
That's funny. Yeah, they do. Well, this is from an old chronicler, it says, from 1130 to 1209, who also despised the Knights Templar. So were the Templars guilty of sodomy, or were they framed? Views on this have changed among academics over the last 100 years, in line with, the change in law, the change in the understanding of creation, the change in spirituality, right? The introduction of the New Age religion. Of course, it's changed in the last century. I would be willing to bet that that's what the whole Babylon working ritual done by Aleister Crowley and them guys. I would be willing to bet that this is ultimately the goal of that, is to introduce a big sodomite anti-life society. So it says, for the record, I'm sure that any gay man in the Middle Ages realizing at some level that he wanted same-sex relationships would have found either the church or military viable options. A great way to stop your family asking, when are you going to go get married? Or worse, trying to marry you off to a nearby cousin. I mean, yeah, nobody wants to marry their cousin. Can appreciate that, right? Templars offered a unique proposition combining the butchness of military life with today. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and venture to say that this was written by somebody who's gay. He calls himself the Templar Knight, and I think he makes a pretty good argument for the fact that the Templars circumstantially seem to be a ancient LGBTQ order, and they control our system of law today. So anyway, that's what I got regarding that. I think. What do you think about all this? You think I might be onto something, or do you think it sounds crazy?
Well, I mean, it seems to me that this people with fagolicious proclivities seem to be in very high places all the time, even going back to good old King James. You know, all these people seem to be. Who was it? Nero killed his wife. He kicked her to death, and she was pregnant. Kicked her to death, and then he castrated a young boy and made him dress in her clothes and shit. You know, I mean, these people are really sick in the head, man.
And you know what else? Nero's known for, since it relates right back in, burning Rome to the ground, introducing the 12 tables, which was the first version of the Set the KV Act, where he burnt Rome to the ground and said, hey, we don't know who's still alive, so I'm taking control of all the property, and you have to come prove you're alive in order to get your property back. Otherwise, it's mine, and you use it the way I tell you to use it. Isn't that weird? So the same guy that does that, it's the same guy that introduced the very first version of the modern system that we're under right now, this neo-feudalism. Theo Shen says that he thinks I'm right on. Godheart Guardian says he thinks I'm on it. Gordzilla says he thinks I'm on it. So Make Stupid People Famous says he had a cousin who became a Mason and a gay cop. Well, that is unfortunate.
A gay cop. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a gay cop.
I want to be a gay cop.
I'll have the authority to feel anybody's nuts that I want to.
That's true. Yeah, if you think about it, that would really be the allure to being a cop. If you were, if you were gay, you'd be, hands on the vehicle, spread them, right? We really need to check this area for weapons here.
And, I need to check this extra good.
All right. What is this? What is this here, huh? Yeah.
Oh, what is this? What is this? Is this a weapon? Is this a sword of some kind?
Heron Song joining us. Good to see you.
Heron Song, what's up, babe?
So Caitlin Clark gets beat up every day by slaves. Stop reaching. She's amazing. I'm going to venture to say Caitlin Clark is a tranny fighter, then I'm probably going to say. And that you're being sarcastic. Because, yeah, I don't know. Who is Caitlin Clark? It's probably I
mean, if that's the only way you can win is to pretend to be a girl and go fight girls, then you're sad, man.
Right. Not only are you mentally ill, but you're also a loser. You know what I mean?
For real.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I honestly think this is the source of all of the anti-God. I think it's the source of all the deceptions with the being able to carbon date and tell something's 50,000 years old, and that we live on a spinny water ball in an infinite expanse of nothingness. Because then how could there be God, right? Everything happened by accident, and you evolved from pond scum.
That's right. Well, I don't know. There's some theory out there that there was a alien masturbated into a pond and some lightning hit it or some shit.
No, literally, there are people who believe that. Oh, no. Here's the other thing.
And they don't know the truth. We were actually created by Anunnaki Jew lizards from Nibiru.
Well, see, that's what I was going to get to. Is that's where the space thing leads. So if you start to get into the truth, but you believe in space, That's what the 12th planet and the whole Anunnaki, race seeding of aliens comes into play, right? And basically, there's not God, there's just aliens that came here and they engineered us to mine gold, right? And they came here from another planet because they need to save their own dying planet and they need to do geoengineering. No, I'm dead serious. And there's a lot of people that fervently
I know.
and they need to save their own dying planet, so they mine the gold so that they can do weather engineering on their planet and all this. All right. And I go, so I'm like, okay, so we're going to ignore all the stupid shit about aliens coming from space. Now, I do agree that there are other beings here. One of the reasons that space, they need the whole space and planet thing is so that you don't realize that they're demons.
Yeah.
That's what they want to hide from. They want you to think they're aliens so that you don't realize they're actually demons.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are.
Look at the demon that was conjured by Aleister Crowley. Lamb.
Looks just like an alien.
He does. He looks just like what. Then people started talking about seeing these grays. I think the first instance I'd heard of that was The Interrupted Journey, which was a story of Betty and Barney Hill in the 60s. Were on their way home to Vermont from Niagara Falls and were supposedly abducted by aliens, but they only recalled it under hypnosis.
Isn't that interesting, right? How convenient is that?
Well, I mean, they only knew that there was time missing, and the guy would wake up with these night terrors and shit, and they couldn't figure out why, so they went to a therapist, and there was some really strange anomalies, like with stuff on their car and things like that. And under hypnosis, he did it separately, and they both revealed exactly the same story. But,
no, I don't doubt. So then that's where people go, and I had this discussion. Like a very good friend of mine thinks that that's what he subscribes to. And the very first thing that a lot of people say is, "Oh, so you don't think that there's other beings here?" Oh no, I know there's other beings here, right? We catch glimpses.
There's giants. There's what the fuck, Sasquatch. I mean, there's all kinds of shit, man.
I disagree that they come from some magical fucking outer space place that you can't, like that, as if the planets are physical things that you can travel to. I disagree with that. I absolutely know that there are other things here, and they want you to think they're aliens so that you'll be accepting of them, entertain them. You know what I mean? Like, actually, so if you could literally have a demon run the world under that type of ideology. But here's the thing: when you look at the behavior of these things, first of all, the sexual nature of these supposed aliens, and then also their fixation with blood, right? Like the draining cattle of blood and all that stuff, right? It's demonic. It's vampiric, really, if you think about it. Everything that they attribute to aliens and abductions and stuff is actually demonic activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that somebody's going to travel, trillions of miles to stick a probe in a hillbilly's ass.
Right. And find was no. Yeah. That's not a thing. So, but that's and I think that's why Elon Musk and Alex Jones, I think they fucked Alex Jones up.
Well, that's evident. That's evident.
Yeah. I think he used to be onto it, and then he got too big and they fucked him up.
Yeah.
And now he, you know what I mean? Now he's kind of towing the line where he like wants to tell people true things, but then he's got to like draw the line. So that's why he's starting to make fun of like true earthers. You know what I mean? But like, oh, I bet they're disappointed now. And it's like, no, dude, you guys are getting worried because nobody's buying your horse shit anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
That last thing they did, sending that thing to do an orbit, a polar orbit.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that. I didn't see it, but it probably looked fake as fuck.
Well, it looked just like any of the other bullshit you get from them, and I'm sitting here looking at it going, oh, wait a second. Hold on a minute. You mean to tell me we've had aircraft now, airplanes, since the early 1900s, okay? Over 100 years of aircraft, 125 years of aircraft, let's say, right? We've got jet fighters that go up to the stratosphere, the SR-71. Went from Los Angeles to London in under 2 hours. Okay. We have all this extraordinary aircraft, and no one has ever done a polar flight like that before until now. when more and more people are realizing and coming to the reality that this place is not a fucking globe.
Well, it's in the
Are
same
you
vein as
shitting me? Nobody's ever flown it. It's never been flown with
you
an
pointed this
airplane.
out. You pointed this out too. Like, oh wait, so nobody's ever went to go film a 24-hour sun before? Like nobody's ever been able to do all the people that they have down there on a regular basis, right? Nobody has thought, I'm going to
has a
settle
station there, Ryan. NASA has a fucking station there.
Well, that makes sense. Why wouldn't it?
And they've never done it. You figured they'd be the first ones to do it, right?
Right, because it
took some financial crooks from YouTube to spell it all and solve it. But nobody bought that, so now we're going to pretend like we flew around in a spaceship.
In controlled opposition. And, it's like, you look at Jaron. Jaron's probably been controlled the whole time. Austin Whitsitt, right? Where's he? What happened to him? I think he got roped into that shit and coerced. And I think because he wasn't going along with the narrative, they're probably breaking that dude down right now.
He's fell off the face of the earth.
Well, last thing I seen about him, he was fighting with his wife or whatever, and she filmed the fighting. And I was like, I bet you that chick was planted there the whole time.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, to control him. But that's just my speculation. That's where I get, I'm real skeptical of things like that. Especially they probably these people recognize who the threat is. He's going around destroying physicists, astrophysicists, engineers, geologists. He's destroying all these professionals. They can't say anything to him because
look at how Toon's gone off the deep end. Even he's gone off the deep end, going to stalk people's family members and shit, and try to start shit. He goes around, he calls people's employers, tries to get him fired.
He's insane, dude.
Listen, I'm going to tell you what, man. He's going to keep pulling that shit and get a bigger and bigger list of people that want to fuck him up, to the point where somebody's going to end up doing it. Somebody's going to end up doing it, and the list of suspects is going to be so huge that it'll be impossible to figure out who the fuck did it.
I heard you say that, and that's not a threat. You're right, dude. It's just a simple thing. You can't go fuck somebody's whole life up, and then you're going to do it to the wrong one.
That's right, man.
Yeah, and that guy's not going to have shit to lose, and then then what? Right?
That's another thing these gay people do too. They let their little emotions and feelings get in the way of common sense.
Oh, I think he's gay as hell.
Oh, he's definitely gay as hell.
Yeah, I think he might even be onto something with. He might be Brenda. I mean, I'm mostly kidding, but you never know.
I don't know. I ain't never seen them together. I ain't never seen them at the same time.
You never fucking know for sure. And so that's but this whole thing all comes back to, you got to believe in aliens, so you don't realize that the demons that are actually running everything and instituting this big system of enslavement, right, through control of your property rights, forcing you to accept deviancy and all sorts of abhorrent anti-life stuff, right? They want you to think it's aliens. It's got to be aliens. It's got to be the Inky and Enlil from the planet Nibiru, right?
Oh, they've been feeding this for a long time too, man. Even they got that whole thing, the History Channel, with ancient aliens all the time, and the hair guy all the time. It had to be aliens, It's like, no, it didn't have to be fucking aliens.
Right, that what's his like Papadopoulos, or no, what, I can't remember his name. But yeah, he's always got the fucked up hair.
Yeah, I just call him the hair guy.
Yeah, he's like, yes, it was. Could it be? Could it be that ancient aliens? Yes, it was. Right?
Yeah, right. It is absolutely. It's that boy. He must be a scientist. You just jump right on shit. No goddamn testing, nothing. Just that's what it is. All right.
I mean, yeah. And the flat earth because it's a domino effect. Once the flat earth thing, once people realize, I don't like flat earth, I like to say true earth, because it's not flat, it's topographical plane, right? But once they realize that it's not a globe and that there's no such thing as space travel, then everything else falls like dominoes. Honestly, my understanding of the law is made even better by understanding where we are, right? Absolutely. And it allows you to know, like, oh, this is a creation. There is a set of immutable laws, all rooted in electromagnetism, ultimately, right, that create life, that apply to society, that manifest in society in the form of common law, free will, and property ownership, right? Property rights. That's how it manifests in the lawful aspect. Well, once you realize you're not on a spinny globe, you realize two important things. One, that you're created, and that there is a law above the law of man, right? And two, that government's not God. And when you look at like the 1960s propaganda with the oh say can you see, remember? And they're running the words across the bottom, and every time the words disappear, it's saying trust your government is God, trust your government God, right? Consume, obey, that type of shit. That's why communism only works, and the system of enslavement, debt slavery, only works if you're an atheist or a Satanist. The Satanists run it, atheists follow it. All you have to do is look at China for a perfect example. Their Bible, they only allow Chinese Christians to have the CCP approved version of the Bible. What kind of shit is that? That means it's translated the way that they want to translate it. There's no verses that would let people know that, like, hey, when the government tells you to do this, but God says don't do it, then you should probably follow God, not the government. No, they can't have none of that shit. So what do you think about this? And this is one of the things, because I'm going to shut this down, but one of the things I'm going to end on is, it occurred to me actually just yesterday, usury, right? So how usury is sinful, basically. They say and for a reason. It's not like, oh, God's going to punish you. And that's not why the Bible tells you certain things. It tells you certain things so you don't get yourself in a fucked up situation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so the usury, everybody knows that usury is like loaning at interest, right? So that's what they think it is. But I realize that the feudal system, the entire system in which we live, is usury. The whole thing is usury. Think about it. Usury is giving somebody something, letting them use it, expecting it back with a profit. That's usury. Mm-hmm. So registering your car is usury, mm-hmm. right? Your labor is subject to usury. Like you're borrowing your labor and you have to pay a tax on it because it belongs to, because you only pay somebody else for something if they actually own it, not you. That's how you know we actually live in a communist system, a neo-feudal system. You only pay somebody else for something if they own it. So you're literally paying the government and the banking system for your labor. It's insane. That's why this shit has to change. It's one of the reasons I made this video today. We'll see if YouTube keeps it up. What do you think the odds of that are?
I think it'll stay up.
You think so?
Yeah, YouTube has relaxed their rules on that shit.
I mean, we went pretty hard on them, though.
Yeah, the blue hairs and LGBTQRS LMNOP people are upset about it. But who gives a fuck? What are you going to do? Throw glitter at us?
I bet they won't suck a dick about it.
I bet you they will.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. That's about all they're going to do.
I mean, what are you going to do? Throw a glitter bomb at me? Fuck you, you know?
Right. No, actually, what they'll do is they'll figure out how to subvert your entire system of law, take away your property rights, and enslave you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because that's what they're doing. Just so you have civil privileges and not rights. And one of those civil privileges is to be protected from mean people calling you a queer.
Yeah. Whatever, man.
Culminates
if your feelings are that fragile, you need to stay off the fucking internet. That's all I got to say.
Heron Song liked your glitter comment. That's pretty funny. Yeah, throw glitter at me, fucker. No, I think Toon, dude. I think you struck a nerve with Toon, and he's got it out for you. Made that entire hit piece on you, and
yeah, but the whole thing is it wasn't a hit piece. I mean, it was like, I looked at it. Now that was Drunk Debunk did that for him. He's like a little lackey holding on to Toon's coat strings, you know. He ain't got much brains anyway. He really doesn't. I mean, that shows, that guy thinks that you don't have to have physical, that you do have to have physical containment for gas pressure to exist. And I'm like, yeah. And
right, yeah, that's
your point.
No, that's all the things that they tried to point out that you were saying that was stupid actually were rational, logical questions that need to be answered. Yeah, they need to be. Yeah. But what I'm more referring to is when I watched it, like they actually sit there and say, this is how much space you're renting in these people's heads.
Oh, I know.
Right?
I know.
They actually sat there and made this entire, I mean, it was shitty production value, but there's production went into it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Sat there and produced this entire video just about you. I'd have been like, all that for little old me?
Yeah, that's what I said. I thanked him for the promotional video.
I'm flattered, you know.
He says, you're in line to win top left. I'm like, awesome. Is there a check that comes with that? Otherwise, I don't give a fuck.
What the hell does that even mean?
I don't know. I have no idea. It's some trendy thing, I think. These people jam onto trends. This is why they put a Ukraine flag in their profile or a rainbow flag in their profiles, because they have to, because I don't know.
If they're talking about left, like in the sense of like liberal leftists, like communists, like retards that believe everything the government says, then actually Globers are they're like McToon and them are the top contenders for fucking top left. You know, and it's funny because he's so effeminate, right? And the way he got triggered the one time about that kid, remember the rainbow experiment in the garage? So for those of you who never seen it, there's this experiment. It was a debate on Modern Day Debates, which is a total biased platform that nobody should watch. But Modern Day Debates, the guy on the flat earth side was showing this video where the guy on the globe side was showing this video where somebody created a rainbow in the garage, and it was supposedly to debunk that rainbows show the firmament or whatever, which is, none of us even really say that anyway. And if you do, you don't know that that's the case. So why would you make a positive claim? But so he's like, no, you can make it in the garage and look at arcs and everything like that. Well, in that video,
the thumbnail,
it was
in the thumbnail, and it looked like a kid was handcuffed or chained to a support pole in a basement or something.
Right.
And it was Matt Hakeem. He says, is that a kid tied to a pole or chained to a pole or something? And Toon lost his fucking mind.
No, he lost, literally, I won't continue this anymore. No, you will have to get rid of him. He's gone or I'm gone. He's gone. It wasn't even Toon's video.
I know.
It had nothing to do with him. And that over-the-top reaction to that, and then his connection to Duffy and their little satanic organization, the Crowleyan Agape Fellowship. I call it Crowleyan because it's the same name as Crowley's Lodge, Agape Lodge, Agape Fellowship. And I know it means love, but what we really have to start wondering what type of Greek love that really was inferring.
I've been told it just meant between, not like romantic love, that it's just like love and respect for your fellow man.
I mean, I know that's what I've been told too, but looking at the people who keep using it, I'm starting to think love for dick or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
They might be pronouncing it wrong. I think it says agape, and that's why.
That's funny. Yeah, no, and then so is and the whole Bob Enyart connected to John Benet Ramsey's death, and that was a big satanic sacrificial, killing thing, anyways. And it's like, dude, these people are actually, and then McToon, it just clicks. You don't have any actual evidence. No. But there's enough where there's smoke, there's fire. That's what I say all the time. And
well, and look at what you got to figure this. And he got mad at me. Now, this is what he put a clip on Facebook of me on Flatzoid's channel. Now, I had just come on the show. And I guess they were talking about the people in the final experiment or whatever. And I think it was Keith made a reference, something about
Village Bike,
the Village Bicycle or whatever, right? And I just sat there, I just chuckled. I was like, yeah, whatever. Well, his big contention was because he's so virtuous. He's such a guy,
paragon of virtue. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That out of character of himself, he actually runs to the defense of a flat earther. First time I've ever seen him do that ever. Okay, because this chick's a flat earther. So
yes, quote unquote.
That's really weird. That's really weird to start with, right? And secondly, he goes after me because I didn't say anything.
No, I know.
What was I supposed to say? I mean, I don't know if the chick's a slut or not. I don't.
He took that as a gold mine to take down as many people as he can. I seen Flats change the name of his channel, wants to get out. I mean, he really used and I'm kind of like, don't let that guy get to you. He won.
It didn't work on me because it
didn't work on you.
And here's what was so beautiful too. One of his followers went and first off, here's what Toon did, right? He put that post out there. He tagged my wife in it.
Yeah,
Now,
I know.
she didn't get the tag because she doesn't know him or anything. So I went ahead and I forwarded it to her so she could see it. Right.
Right.
But that didn't suit him. So despite the fact that her email is not public, it's not on her profile for Facebook or any other thing like that, he had to somehow go and dig and find her email to email her with a link to the clip saying,
That's
isn't
creepy.
this? Yeah.
That shit's creepy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then he didn't get the results he was looking for with that, right? So his supporters are all in there saying shit, like, oh, a real man. And Toon said a real man would have stood up and said something. I said, what in the fuck would you know about being a real man?
I'm sure he knows a lot about men, but nothing about.
He don't know nothing about being one. I can tell you that right now. That's why he acts like a little.
He knows the anatomy of a man very well.
That's why he acts like a little effeminate fucking man child. See, so So and he obviously by his own thing, he said, well, your silence means that you're along with it. And I said, okay. So I held him to his own standard. Okay. I said, now you've got people in your fucking followers on your Facebook page.
Oh shit. Look at this.
For violence.
Look, breaking news. McToon's talking about Austin Murphy right now.
Oh, what a fucking fag.
On his live stream. And look, no, it gets better. Austin called him gay and now he's triggered. Of course, he doesn't want anybody to know that.
Oh, shit. So anyway, one of them was calling for me to have, somebody needs to go give him a jackhammer enema. And I said, do you support these violence comments by your supporters? Your silence means that you're along with it, right?
That's a really gay thing to say.
Yeah, I know. So then what happened was one of his followers went and stalked down Cassidy's Facebook page, found a picture of her, and then one of her out in the barn during the summer with one of her horses and shit. She's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And he says, oh, look at this little whore, this, that, and the other. And she's probably good fun with all the boys and all this other. I brought Toon's attention to it. I said, here's one of your followers. Are you going to condemn this? Your silence means that you agree with it. And that goes against what you got after me with. So I'm holding you to your own standard. Took him a day. Took him a fucking day. And then he said, yes, I condemn it. Now, will you condemn what Keith said? And I said, no. I said, I don't agree with your standard. I'm just holding you to yours.
See, these guys are literally actually unhinged, dangerous, lunatic people. And that's the type of people that are drawn to this type of, to their side, essentially. You know what I mean? The heliocentric, like not just like, okay, you cannot know or you can be in denial. And a lot of people are in middle on the fence or they don't want to believe it. But people who go out there and avidly, viciously support it and want to attack, truth communities, they're probably all gay, dude. I'm not even kidding you. Like, who says jackhammer enema?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they really do love balls. That's why, the whole heliosexual.
That's why we call them heliosexuals.
Yeah, and it's so accurate. It's so accidentally accurate that it makes it even more funny. Because I really do
really think enamored by balls and phallic rockets.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, obviously. They go 22,000 miles an hour, even though the fucking SR-71 Blackbird couldn't even approach that. And it's way more aerodynamic. You got this big hunk of fucking blocky shit that can reach 22,000 miles an hour. That's totally believable.
They try to tell you, they said there's no friction in space. And I said, well, then how the fuck did they get it there?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And forget about the Van Allen radiation belt, because that's...
Well, see, they're inside that. Well, when they show you that picture from the 1972, blue marble, they say, well, how do you explain this? I'm like, how do I explain it? How do you explain it? How did that film in 1972 survive all the X-rays and radiation? You mind telling me that?
That's a good point.
You used to have to take your film and shit out of your camera bag and stuff so they could look at it at the airport. You couldn't run it through the scanner because the X-ray would expose the film.
It's the faginati, dude. I'm telling you. It's at the end of the day, it's what this all comes back to. It's the faginati. NASA faginati. right? The system of law, Faginati. Hollywood, Faginati. DC, Faginati. It's all Faginati. And, that's why their initiation ritual is fag stuff every single time.
I mean, it's just insane with that shit that they do. And so that was really weird. And I goes, he got madder than hell about that too. He goes, are you going to condemn what Keith said? And I said, no, I can't. I don't know whether the chick is a whore or not. I don't know. Okay. So I can't weigh in either way. I'm just holding you to your standards. I didn't say I agreed with your standard. I'm just holding you to it.
You should get McToon a shirt that says Faginati. You know what I mean?
He'd probably he'd probably say, "Oh, thank you for the top."
Because make sure it's a halter top though.
Oh my god!
Make sure it's a halter top.
with a midriff.
Yeah, so he'll actually wear it.
Sarah,
he is unpaid. That's obvious, and so is Duffy, and so is their entire crew. Like, what would a guy like McToon have any business going and talking at one of Duffy's churches? See, and that's a little satanic queer cult right there. You can tell Duffy's lighting his loafers. You can tell they're in a little cult and they're on pair. I'm not saying they're intelligence directly, but I strongly suspect that they are intelligence assets. I wouldn't say they're intelligence because they don't have much intelligence, but they're like cannon fodder, useful idiots, right? That they can send out to do this dumb shit. Like, honestly, the final experiment was just the underestimation of the truth community. They thought they were just going to be able to like, oh, don't worry, these people are stupid anyways. You know what I mean?
Well, Craig from FTFE actually did threaten me on Messenger. He said, if I ever meet you, I'm going to snap your neck.
Oh, is he going to do that now, huh?
Yeah.
Isn't that dude about to get like a foot amputated or something?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I can help him out with that if he wants to try something.
That Sarah G says bagalicious proclivities. Gay band name stolen. Bagalicious proclivities. That's awesome. It's hilarious. Mr. Super Sidewinder says assets.
I see what you did there, Sidewinder. I see what you did. That's clever.
Yeah, we got Globo Homo. I mean, you guys got some good ones, man. That's pretty gross, Mike, but it's funny. Yeah, not going to read it, but everyone can.
Yeah.
No, they're absolutely into that. So that concludes it's a postulation, right? It's my theory, but it's strongly supported by circumstantial evidence, going all the way back to the Templars, the Esquires that control the system of law now. In the past 5 years, where we've literally had this shit shoved in our faces, everywhere we look, whether it's fucking television, it's magazines, clothing lines. They're everywhere, and they don't. How are they everywhere when they don't even make up that much of the population? It's not even. They're an abnormality in the population, but they're everywhere on TV and everything. So it shows you who's in control of this stuff.
I think they make them. They make them. They recruit them, and they make them too. I think.
Oh, they do make them. They make them when they're kids. That's what happens.
Because I've seen like an explosion, of this shit in like the last 20 years. It's just like everybody's a fucking faggot now. It's like, why? What happened? What changed? And you can look at the stuff in the air. You can look at what's in the water, the use of glyphosates in our agriculture, which is known as a gender bender in the chemistry community. And when Alex said it was turning the frogs gay, he was fucking serious.
No, that was that's one of those things. That's why I said Alex doesn't. And Alex puts out a lot of truth, but I think they did something to him. Whether MK Ultra'd his ass, or they just basically told him like, "Hey, we're going to kill everybody or whatever they did to him." Or maybe he
went over there to Jerusalem and they passed him around the rabbi room. That's what happened there.
You never know. All right, I'm just saying they did something to him. And so now he toes the line. Like, he'll tell you a lot of truth about like the atrazine, making the frogs gay and everything. And he'll tell you a lot of truth about the jabs and all that stuff. But then you go to space and for some reason he won't touch it. So I use him as a good indicator to see where the target is. Right. So wherever he won't go, that's where you need to be heading. Right. So if he won't touch it, that means it's too dangerous to their agenda for someone with his his level of influence, because he reaches millions and millions of people, his level of influence to be able to talk about it. And space is one of those things. Planets, one of those things. He needs you to believe in aliens. They need you to believe all that shit. So, but I'm going to shut this down. I got to get ready for work. Do you have anything you want to leave everybody with?
Supposed to debate some guy
right.
from Facebook Friday at 8 o'clock on my channel. That is if he shows, you know.
Some people may not know your channel. So
I'm going to put it in here for you.
Yeah. Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind on YouTube. And it's definitely got some good stuff. It's pretty funny. And then the people that come up on there regularly, like Chicago Cubby Bear and them guys, you guys are pretty funny. I watch you when I'm at work, and just basic lot. You know the devil's greatest weakness is logic.
Yeah, man.
You need to, you know what I mean? You can't ask logical questions. Otherwise you're going to trigger people. Like you triggered that witch that one time.
Oh my God. Yeah. She got mad because I was sitting here while she's talking about how difficult it is to turn your chroma key off. I was sitting here and turning mine and off with the click of a fucking mouse button. I was like, oh yeah, look at how difficult that is. Shut the fuck up.
How dare you not just blindly trust
I know, right?
people that you don't know? How dare you question these people? They've been in the community forever. Yeah, that's what I would do if I was the enemy. I'd put somebody in the community for a long time, and then I would flip them. So
yeah. Hey, I've seen people that I knew and liked and shit become fucking meth heads, and I don't have shit to do with them anymore. Yeah, it's easy for me to shit can somebody, real quick. All you got to do is fuck up.
You don't attach your identity or your relationships with people, and that's something that a lot of people have a problem with. They identify themselves with their relationships and the validity other people give them, and so it makes them hard to cut people loose. But
that's why each and every one of us has to remember you are a unique expression of the infinite possibility.
That's true. Infinite, a individual manifestation of an infinite being. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, thank you all for watching this this garbage that I spewed on here for a couple hours about. It is honestly what I think is happening. I can't directly prove it, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. And you guys let me know in the comments if you're watching this afterwards, or even if you're watching now, what you guys thought of it. And don't forget to check out Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind Friday at 8.
There one more time for y'all.
If the guy shows up, but even if not, it should still be a good time. So,
well, when I get off here, I'm going to set up the show and shit, and then I'm going to post it in that group too. And
yeah, I'm just you've had a couple people like this, and it's about 50-50 if they show up from So, but
everybody go call McToon gay.
Yes, that would be pretty funny and trigger him. So you guys have an awesome afternoon. Watch, now we're gonna turn that little effeminate fella on me as well. Fuck him. All right, guys, have a great day. Later.